Hey mama, welcome to the One Income Family podcast. Do you find yourself drowning in financial overwhelm and you're ready for a way out? Many of us are on this journey trying to figure out how to do the budgeting thing and follow the Bible, which tells us to steward God's money well. There's parables and verses all over the place guiding and teaching you, how to manage the money God has given you. But when you're in the middle of overwhelm, the simplest and most powerful verses can be overlooked. That is why today I am sharing with you two of the most powerful ways to help you partner your finances with God. So go cuddle up with a nice warm drink, get comfy with them babies, and open your heart to God as we head into today's episode. Do you find it hard to save or get out of debt? Are you constantly searching for ways to save money and live on a budget? Do you have big dreams only to be stopped by not sticking to your budget? Are you ready for financial freedom? Then you, mama, are in the right place. Welcome to the One Income Family podcast, where you will learn what it looks like to budget on one income, how to partner with God in your finances, how to budget in a way that's easy to stick to, and how to cut costs and save money, all so that you can start building wealth. It is my mission to equip you with these tools so that you can live in abundance regardless of the amount in your account. Hey, I'm Molly, a budget coach for stay-at-home moms, and I know what it's like to struggle on one income. I've lived paycheck to paycheck, relied on being frugal, and failed many budgets until I learned how to budget without tracking. This has allowed my family to pay off debt and build wealth all on one income. So, if you are ready for financial freedom, then go grab that stroller, plug in those headphones, and let's get to it. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to invite you to grab a budget audit. You, my dear friend, you're here listening to this podcast because you're struggling to stick to your budget. You're living paycheck to paycheck, and you are looking for a way out. You are ready to start reaching your goals, like paying off debt, saving money, and going on that vacation. You're eager to stop living paycheck to paycheck so that you can live comfortably on one income with no restrictions, which is why I want to invite you to grab yourself a budget audit. On a budget audit, you will find simple solutions to your budgeting problems without spending hours searching the internet or even my podcast. You'll walk away with an action plan of the steps you need to take to fix your budget and achieve your dreams. Like, that's what you want, right? So take your first step towards financial peace today by booking a budget audit. Go to calendly.com/Molly Bunnell and let me help you end the paycheck to paycheck cycle you are living in and embrace a life of abundance. Again, go to calendly.com/Molly Bunnell. That is calendly.com/Molly with a Y, B as a boy, ENELL, and book your call today. All right, so we're going to get a little bit off the financial track here and just talk, life, right? So here lately, I have been doing a lot of inner work. I've had some mindset struggles that I've been dealing with. And due to that, I have gotten a few books by Jenny Allen, one of them called Get Out of Your Head and the other one, Untangle Your Emotions. And they have done some great work around my mental struggles, right? And so no, I'm going to add, I'm not getting paid for promoting these books or anything. They've just been that impactful in my life that I just wanted to share this lesson that I've learned from you, and not only how it's going to impact your finances, but the impact it's made on everything in my life and my thought process and everything that just has come with reading these books. And what it essentially is, the point as I started reading these books, and the first one I read was Get Out of Your Head. And the first thing she said was essentially to take it to God. And I remember as I'm reading this first chapter, I'm eye rolling because I'm well, no, duh, but this isn't going to really help me. Like I feel really silly telling you this and like the feelings that I had with it, but that's just where I was mentally. I was not in a great mind space. And because of it, like when she was telling me to take these problems to God, I'm just like, okay, I mean, yeah, I know that, but I mean, what else can I really do? Because that's what I was looking for. I was looking for a self-help book. I wasn't looking for a book that was getting my help by taking it to God. And once I read the whole book, and I got into her next book, and I just saw myself start thinking of God more and start like taking these small little things that I was spiraling in to God. And instead of trying to fix it myself, things just started falling into place. Like my mindset got I can't say untangled because I still have a lot of work to do, as we all probably do. But the point is, God then became, instead of like something in the back burner of my mind, he came to the forefront. He came to where I was constantly thinking about him. There was a point where, I struggled with remembering to pray, and I struggled with like really talking to him. And so what came out of that was then I would sit down and I would journal to him. And yeah, those were some really deep conversations, and they usually do get deeper because I'm able to focus more and keep my brain on track when I'm writing, versus when I'm like talking in my head. The multiple things going on in your brain kind of take over and take you down a rabbit trail. But my point is, that's the way I used to connect with God before. It wasn't like woven into every aspect of my life, but as I'm reading these books and as I'm like putting into play the things that she's guiding and teaching me. And I really wasn't putting into play the aspect where she said, take it to God, because again, I was in a space where I'm like, well, yeah, I know I need to take it to God, but what can I actually do to fix this, right? Because I wanted to fix it. I didn't want to I don't know. It was a weird thought process, but now I'm like looking at it from a different point of view, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I needed that so much. And because of it, this beautiful thing has birthed out of me this new way of connecting with God. Like, I have felt more connected with God these past few months that I've been reading these books than I have when I would journal with him. Like I would sit down, I would journal with God, and then after I shut that book, it's like I put God away and I did the rest of my life, right? It kind of feels like God was just this person or this thing that I would pull out whenever I needed something really big, and I would bring it to him and I would talk to him, but I'd never see, or if I did, it was like something really big, but I never really see him working in my life, and I'd never really feel deeply connected. It was kind of like when you get on the phone call with like somebody, like your dad or something, and you talk to him and then you hang up the phone and you go on with your life, right? But that's not the kind of life that I wanted with God, and that's not the kind of life that we should want with God. We should want him in every single thing that we do, but I didn't know how to do that. I know that people would talk about saying, oh, just go and do like popcorn prayers, or do little small prayers here and there, and then like deep prayers other places, but it just never really connected. I'm like, well, yeah, but that's just, like texting somebody throughout the day. It's not really deep connection for me. But when I started reading these books and now sitting where I am now, I couldn't put like my finger on it. Why all of a sudden I started feeling more connected with God, but I was doing less journaling. Like I haven't journaled hardly as much. I used to journal every single day, if not more, if things would pop up into my head. But here lately, I haven't had the time because of the way my life has been to sit down and really just spend like half an hour to 45 minutes talking to God. And yet I still feel a deep connection, and I could not figure out why. And it wasn't until literally today, I'm writing a Facebook post for the group, that it just clicked. It clicked in my brain that this has all stemmed from these books, and simply her point of taking it to God, which her point of it was like for other reasons, and it was a great book. But it was just like, it was like written throughout the entire book, just constantly take it to God, take it to God, take it to God. Well, then my brain got used to that thought process of take it to God, take it to God, take it to God, that I just started taking every single thing to God. And it has just changed so much. Like, I feel connected in everything. And before I start giving away like the points of this episode, I just really want you to understand that this is something that is going to not only change your financial side of things with partnering with God, but your entire life if you put these into play. Yes, it's going to be hard because, I'm just giving you one episode and you're not constantly hearing, take it to God, like I was when I read these books. But it's still a good start. It's opening your eyes to how you can actually partner with God in every aspect of your life. And it is going to, it may be, things that you've heard before, but it's still going to blow your mind when it actually all comes together and you understand why these two things really make such a difference. Okay, so I'm going to dive into the first one, which, if you haven't guessed it by now, is take it to God. And in order to partner your finances with God, that is the one thing that you want to focus on, is take it to God. I don't care if it's a big thing, like somebody passing away, or a small thing, like trying to figure out which conditioner to use. I want you to take every little thing to God, because that is where you're going to feel most connected. That is where you're going to start getting into that habit of going to Him for things instead of trying to rely on yourself. That is where you're going to train your brain to put Him at the forefront of your mind instead of just like, when the book's open, He's here, and when the book's closed, He's gone, right? And no, that wasn't exactly the mindset that I had when that was happening. But it's something that if you don't think about, that can so easily be your mindset towards God, right? It can be just like when you're dealing with everyone else. You're like, okay, I had my conversation with my mom. Now it's time to shut that off and go on and live my own life. And that's not what we want with God. We want Him there in every single aspect of life. And so when you start bringing everything to God, you are going to start seeing Him work in your life. This is opening your mind to God doing things in your life when you take it to God. It's like when you buy a new car. When you buy a new car and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this car, and all of a sudden you see it everywhere. Like before, you'd see it here and there, but your brain has been trained to see this car because you now see it on a daily basis. And there is an actual scientific name for it, so you're gonna have to look that up because I did not do that. But your brain has been trained on seeing that car, so when you go out into the world, you see the car everywhere. This is the same thing that happens when you're constantly taking stuff to God. Then your brain is able to see Him working everywhere all the time instead of like having to sit there and really think and really listen for Him. It's going to come so much easier. Not only because He's then at the forefront of your mind, but you're also going to become in tune with Him. You're going to know His voice. Kind of like by now, if you were to hear me in person, you'd probably know who I was, even though you may not know what my face looks like, right? And so that is what you are going to get. You are going to be able to see God working in your life in so many ways. You're going to be able to hear from Him so much easier, and you're going to be able to see the love and the work and the things that He's doing for you in your life. And it's going to be so amazing. You're going to feel so much more connected and closer to Him, and you're going to see growth in your life in ways that you never were able to see before, because you are training your brain to look for God. You are training your brain to be able to see him and to hear and listen for him, instead of before there was so much noise in the background. There was so much going on that you were trained to listen to maybe something else. Maybe some other person was telling you something that maybe were lies, or maybe it was the truth, and it doesn't matter because you were trained to listen for them or for something else going on in your life instead of listening for God. This is going to be a game changer simply by training your brain to hear and see him first. Okay, so the second thing that I want you to do is to become reliant on God. And this kind of just goes along with the taking it to God. But I want you to become reliant on God, because in the world that we live in, we have become so focused on self-sufficiency and self-reliance that we push other people away, including God, to say that you can do it yourself. You're like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I just need the self-help book maybe to guide me along this path a little bit further, or to make it easier so I don't have to do so much work. But in all reality, God wants us to be reliant on him. I wish I had looked up this the verses in the Bible so you could go and read it. But there is a part in the Bible, in the Old Testament, I want to say it's in Genesis. No, it's in Exodus, because it's after they have gotten out of the being enslaved by the Egyptians. That's what it is. Okay, so I believe it's in Exodus. But it's where the Israelites are roaming around in looking for the promised land. They're in the desert for, I don't remember what was it, like 40 years or something. And they had to rely on God for food. Every single day, God would put manna out on the earth for them to pick up, and they were only to take the amount that they needed for that day, not to stock up on it, so that would build their reliance and their trust and belief in God. And that is what we have to do again today. The world wants us to be self-reliant. They want us to focus on what we can do for ourselves and push everyone else away, because that's not the way of the world, right? But God wants us to come closer to him. And I love this I kind of think of this as a child, right? We need to become children again, because as a child, my 5-year-old downstairs, she is 100% reliant on me for safety, for shelter, for food, and she enjoys her life. It's, I say easy, but if you become a 5-year-old again, life isn't easy. But in retrospect, life for them, or even high schoolers, is easy because they are not having to do the things like getting the food or getting the money that we need in order to pay for everything that this world offers us or that we need in the world, right? And then when you become an adult, which I'm air quoting, life all of a sudden gets flipped upside down and you're like, adulting is hard. I don't want to do this. I now have these responsibilities. We thought that when we were going to become an adult, we were going to be able to do whatever we wanted with our money, but now we have to pay for bills and all this other stuff. And now we have no money, just like we did when we were in high school, and this life sucks. And you can spiral and go down the rabbit trail of that, but you get what I'm saying. Like, when we are able to be reliant on somebody, life is so much less stressful. Self-reliance essentially equals stress, mostly because we don't always know what we're doing, and there then becomes problems, and there comes responsibilities that we have to take care of and we have to handle, and we have to know what we're doing, even though 90% of the time you don't really know what you're doing. And so that is why reliance is such a blessing. Relying on God and knowing and trusting that He is going to be there for us is such a sigh of relief. Like, I don't know about you, but just talking about this right now, I can feel the stress and the tension coming off my shoulders because I know and I believe deeply that God is here for me. He is here to bless me, to bring me joy, not sorrow. And even though there is going to be sorrow, and there's going to be hard times, that does not mean that He's not going to bring me peace through that time and isn't going to help me through them, right? Even though there's going to be sorrow in my life and there's still going to be hardships, I know and trust that He is going to be there to catch me when I fall, that He is going to be my strength when I have none left, that He is going to be my wisdom when I'm standing there going, what am I supposed to be doing? I know and trust that He is there for me through everything, thick and thin. And that is why it is so important to take everything to God. Train your brain to see God, to know God, to look for God, and then become reliant on God and trust that He will be there so that you can just take the stress off. You can surrender that stress to God and He can hold it because He is strong enough to do it when we aren't, right? Okay, so let's jump back into how this can all apply to your budget. Now, when you get into practice with this, it's obviously going to become natural, but what do you do before then, right? So what I want you to do so that you can start applying this right now is I want you to start first and foremost, as I always say, by praying. Praying right before you do it, whether it's a popcorn prayer, a small one, shallow, whatever, or a long, deep, strong prayer because you've got lots of emotions and feelings going on, it doesn't matter because simply praying is going to do that first thing that I talked about. It's going to take it to God. It's going to help you put God at the forefront of your brain so that you can hear Him and you can see Him. It's not only praying isn't simply for, hey, I need this, hey, I love you, that kind of stuff. It's also for putting Him at the forefront of your brain so that you are prepared and ready to take on whatever comes at you with Him by your side. The second thing that I want you to do is check your heart. What is the motivation behind your purchase, behind your decisions on the numbers of your budget, behind the categories or the accounts that you create? What is your motivation? Who are you budgeting for? What are you budgeting for? Why are you budgeting? And then how do you feel about your financial situation? Those questions are going to get real deep into the nitty-gritty of why you're doing things, and they're going to show you your true motivation. Is it for selfish reasons or is it for true godly reasons? What is your true motivation? And probably like me, you're somewhere in between because our self and our flesh is going to be pulling at us while our godly side is like, no. So there's a constant tug of war there. And it's a matter of making sure that you're keeping your true desires at the forefront of your mind by asking these questions, by praying so that you are able to do this with God instead of trying to do it by yourself. Okay, and then the third thing that I want you to do is when these emotions come up, when beliefs come up, when fears come up that are not true, I want you to do a belief exercise. It's like my belief versus God's truth. Take it deeper. What am I believing that isn't aligned with God's truth? Dig into the Bible. Find a verse that goes that opens the truth, it shares your actual truth instead of the false belief that maybe you've been having or the fear, and it combats it with a verse. So then you have a tool to fight that thought, to fight that belief with the truth of God because it's actual scripture. It's not just you putting words together. It's actual scripture that you can memorize, that you can post throughout your entire house on cards or something so that you can constantly be seeing it as a reminder. You don't have to do this stuff just for your budget, but if you do this for your budget, you're going to find yourself being able to partner your finances with God in a much stronger way than maybe you were before. Okay, so that was a lot all in one episode, and I really hope that you were able to open your hearts and glean information from this episode, because this was truly from my heart to your heart. It's something that, no, I was not planning on recording, and God just told me that this needed to be shared with you because it was something that you needed to hear and something that I needed to hear as well, because as I'm doing this, again, I am doing this in faith. I had a few points down, but I didn't know what was going to come out because God is speaking through me, and some amazing tidbits that I'm like, wow, did that really just come out of my mouth? It came out of my mouth because He is my strength. I am trusting Him. I'm relying on Him to give me the words when I need it, right? And the same thing goes with your budget. Relying on Him, knowing and letting Him guide you is just so great. It feels so good to know that you're not alone. I know you know that feeling and that you want and crave that feeling. So open your heart to God, open your mind to God so that you can have that, okay? So I just want to end here with, if you have any questions around this, if you want to dive deeper into this, please come and shoot me an email at mollybonnell@gmail.com and let's talk. Let's have a chat about this. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear if you have any tidbits or, some takeaways that you got from this that are just so strong and impactful. I would love to connect with you and get to know you better. So please, bring whatever you have, whatever thoughts, whatever questions, bring them to me. Shoot me an email again at mollybonnell@gmail.com. That's MOLLY, B as in boy, ENELL @gmail.com. And I look forward to seeing you right back here next week on another episode of the One Income Family Podcast. Before you go, I hope this episode has ignited a fire inside of you, and I pray that it creates long-lasting impact. Did you know that you too can impact other one-income families? All you have to do is leave a written review, and you help get the podcast in the hands of other mamas in need. You can also text this episode to that friend who is also knee-deep in the same kind of chaos as you and inspire them to make a change. Also, your review lets me know that you're enjoying the show, and that lights me up. I get so excited to hear from you. Another great way that we can connect, though, is through the One Income Family community over on Facebook. So after you're done leaving that 5-star review, head on over to the community where you will find other mamas working their way out of the chaos. You can ask your questions and connect with others who truly understand what you are going through. I cannot wait to connect with you in the community. Until then, I will see you right here next week on another episode of the One Income Family Podcast.